Yeah, like it's like I know like I don't think ZA was necessarily a Super Switch specific project because obviously they're releasing on the original and it's just by the way the release cycle goes that like you couldn't put your eggs in the Super Switch basket just yet.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately it like in a way it'd be nice to see like what the like just having that extra little bit of grunt in the machine will do to
Mm.
the overall performance, well overall um experience, I should say. Because you've seen the whole sort of stuff like it's like playing Scarlet and Violet on the Super Switch with more Pokemon up on screen and all that sort of stuff. It's a very kind of like easy kind of like um, I say fix, but it's certainly a nice, quick way of like helping the experience that way.
Mm.
Um, yeah, with ZA is gonna be interesting. Like I don't think like from what I have been looking at so far, I don't think they've been really pushing the boat out in terms of mechanics. Like it is just a case of like, the Legends Arceus worked out so well because they did something slightly different in the gameplay mechanics. So let's do the same thing again, but on a slightly different scale.
Oh,
And
I thought this was like you had Pokemon A running around Pokemon B, and you had, hey, my move will take 3 seconds to load up, yours will take 5 seconds to load up.
yeah,
Therefore,
yeah,
I'll get a bite
oh
and a
yeah,
half.
yeah. No, that's what I mean. Like, so it's a case of like, so like that's the thing. Whereas you had like the battle mechanics were almost like again it was kind of feudal in a sense so they kind of used obviously you have those two different styles and it was still quite turn-based but there was still like a relative cooldown there or just the fact that like you had to take on these kind of like rabid Pokemon and you are the target so it's
Hmm.
kind of going it's taking that same idea and going in a slightly different direction with it. um so like I think from that alone, I think it's nice to have a slight. It's a different gameplay experience, and hopefully, I don't know if it's going to be better, but like I said, I think different is good when it comes to a franchise that's typically kind of like so monotonous anyway. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I'll kind of bring it back to this game here in a sense where like the snagging kind of mechanic is a great idea. Um, weirdly enough. And this will sound very strange considering that, like, we see a lot of this game. I don't think there's enough snagging involved, if you know what I mean. It's
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
case
Look,
like,
the mechanic was to. I think they did a few things really well with this, which was they forced you by the availability, who they made available in the decks. They forced you
hmm,
to go with a specific roster of shit.
yeah,
Like if you were like if you had played it a certain way, you might be getting to the point where you get Flora and you're like, thank Christ, I finally got a grass type. And you have to
yeah, very
figure out
true,
how
yeah,
to have to figure out how do you make Flora work.
mm,
God help you.
exactly, yeah. I mean, with grass types, you're not exactly in the most luxurious of companies, unfortunately.
Um
But yeah, I see
so
what you
but
mean, though.
they did force you to, because I do think like there's a game you could make in there's a game you could make with like Johto where you don't get one of the three base starters and you have to progress the game, as a
Mm.
nobody.
But
And that was
one suggestion I had for like obviously we have this kind of like mini series of Pokemon playthroughs that we do on this channel. Um, and if we ever do go back into the fan made games, one I really wanted to do was the Rocket edition of Pokemon Red,
oh yeah,
where you play as a Rocket Grunt, and it is essentially this game, but on a
yep,
wider range. So like you do decide what you want to snag or want to steal, and then you build your team that way. But much to your point, you're having to start off with a fucking Zubat or a Rattata or something completely useless.
yep.
So it is such a tough start for you in that game. But if you pull up a couple of few heists at the start of the game, you end up having a pretty decent team by the end, you know? But it's still that kind of same thing where like you have to make go with what you have and get lucky essentially or get everything kind of like set up for yourself there.
Yeah, like you consider, I think Slugma is one of the better options in this game, if I remember it right. and Slugma is extremely tough to use.
Yeah, it's such a frustrating Pokemon in that sense because, as is often the case, if you just have low speed, sometimes it just stops the Pokemon dead in terms of its use.
Yep.
You know, um, and that's quite a shame because like even that's the case for a lot of like just like standard Pokemon that like just not even have any level of speed, means that it's kind of off the market for competitive play.
Yeah. So,
Um,
but a game like this breeds, and look, if there's an argument to get behind the likes of Dexit, it would be, hey, they can cater to a game where they don't make a Garchomp in every game, or where you
yeah.
don't have to worry about Garchomp,
Hmm.
and
But
they can
that's all.
actually.
That's also a good point as well. Is that like it's again give like Pokemon like a game like Pokemon Colosseum works really well because you're not necessarily giving the same toys to the players. You're not giving them
Hmm,
starters. You're giving them two evolutions, which is perfectly fine, realistically. But it also means that, like you're almost like at this different. You're at this different part of the type chart starting off. So even
yes,
mechanically, if you were to make a conventional game with the 8 gym leaders and everything else, like conventionally, you always pick like you should pick a gym that's easy to so you get a grasp of it, so it's like in if you picked Charmander or if you picked Bulbasaur or Squirtle in the first gen, you had Rock to cut your
hmm,
teeth on, you know, um, and if you basically went with Charmander, yeah, you get a bit dicked over at the start, but it'll work for you in the end toward when you get towards the end. Um, so likewise, if you have a situation like this where like your two starters are essentially like Psychic and Dark, then that means now, okay, now what do I do for my first gym? So
yep,
you're flipping the formula there just a little bit to make it a different gameplay experience, and that's an important thing for like these kind of side projects overall is to just do one thing different and do it really really well, you know.
yes, yes, and this does that really well, in all praise to it.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know if we'll probably do a proper like review discussion towards the end of the playthrough. Um, I think what kind of struck me here is like, especially when I real like kind of had a scan through and said, okay, what, how much is like actually left of this game? And then I realized, oh shit, this is the final act.
Yep.
Like,
Wait, how
and
much?
it was
How
okay.
much have you look? How much have you looked ahead with this?
I so we were having a discussion off screen in terms of like we want to kind of finish the playthrough in the room. So
Yes.
I made a tactical decision to basically kind of like stop advancing the plot, up to a certain point that we agreed. So I
Okay.
am aware of that there is basically like whatever end game is upon us, and then that's it, as opposed to the actual technical, the nitty gritty of it. But
Okay.
in my means to kind of find out how much I have left of the game, it really kind of struck me that the game really didn't have any middle to it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm thinking to myself then, and the kind of the thought process I was having it while I was playing it, I was thinking like, is that necessarily a bad thing that it didn't have a middle to it? Because
Oh, I think it didn't even have a beginning to it. It was that it jumped you in at the middle. Like you start
mm,
off with your team in its 20s.
yeah, yeah, that's
So
true
like
too.
that,
Actually, yeah, you could argue that like there was no Act One to the game. You're pretty much just jump in from the immediate res, you know.
yeah,
Mm. But in terms and
like
the way I kind of describe the pacing is that like normally, I think it's just me being a bit too used to the overall pacing of a Pokemon game, where like they will distract you with some sort of subplot in between. Like the game overall was really missing a B story for me. Just something else to kind of to fill the gap in between the last town we were in and this tower. You know,
yep. And
like
this is
you
what
have
this
characters there that you just kind of sat on that didn't really do anything. You know, kind of way.
yeah, and this is where like you're the fact that you can't go out and catch wild Pokemon. The fact that there's
Mm,
no real cave for you to have a justification in going to explore. Yeah.
yeah.
Um but again, it's how much is actually lost from that.
Well, as you said in the previous session, this is meant to be just a battle oriented Pokemon game, as opposed to
Yep.
the kind of the main kind of like arc of games. So like in a way, like you can't really complain that a battle-oriented Pokemon game have given you too many battles. You know, kind of way. Like that's a bit of a contradiction there. But what I would say is that like it'd be nice to have had something to so you don't have to just be constantly locked into Colosseums over and over again. Because I think like it's better to have left stuff on the table than to have overexerted in a kind of game design sense. So the fact that like I am genuinely invested in these characters and interested in the story, you know, that's a good criticism to have, you know. The fact that like I like felt like you could have done more with these things is not the end of the world. It's just that it's just a wasted opportunity. That's all. Like, it's no harm done in a sense, you know. And you're hardly going to go back to it now. What fucking 20 years after, you know? It's but as I said, like you always learn something from these side projects, and from Pokemon Colosseum and stuff like being so battle oriented, you end up going the opposite scale with Mystery Dungeon, which I think is very character heavy. Comparatively, like it is a fucking soap opera compared to Pokemon Colosseum, you know.
Oh. 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 I could hear you salivating from weeks ago.
Yeah, there was a part of me that was thinking if I was still recruiting for a 6th member, this guy would be in straight away. And again, it comes back to that whole kind of point of like, Heracross is absolutely fantastic as a Pokemon, but frustratingly, he's not that good in his own gen at this moment in time. Heracross is one of these ones that gets better the more the moveset expands and the more the stats kind of turn into what we have now, because everything starts flattering what Heracross actually is, especially if you end up having to say like Guts as an ability, because then that thing is a powerhouse, and it always has been a powerhouse. It's just that it never had the moveset to reflect it, you know. Just the sheer fact that you finally have like stab bonus or something like that to be able to say, okay, now you have a move like Mega Horn that is going to do fucking unbelievable damage and suits your build right down to the core. But not only that, you've also got like a fighting move that you can reasonably get. You know, it was always such an annoying thing in the first 2 gens to encounter a Pokemon that has certain typings and then not a natural move to go with it. Such a frustrating and unnecessary, not unnecessary, the wrong word to use, but just such a pointless thing not to have, if that makes sense. You know, space was an issue in the first game, I accept that. In the second game, when you have more entries and more like kind of code to play with, you know, they had to pick their battles a little bit there. So I have a degree of sympathy in that front. I'll be absolutely honest with you, I've no idea why I hit return there instead of Psybeam. I just realised that back at the end. I was like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, not use the Psychic attack on the fucking bug fighting type.
Because
and then I realised, I'm trying to catch it. I think
you wanted to catch it.
I was trying to catch it, yeah. I just had a complete fucking brain fart there. I was like, why am I not killing this? Oh yeah, the core mechanic of the fucking game, Jonathan. Jesus Christ.
Gotta
this is what Muscle Memory does to you, kids. But no, I'll keep the Master Ball handy for whatever other legendary shows up in the game.
You think you're going to get another legendary?
Well, I know that. Excuse me. I know that Ho and Lugia are on the box art, so that's a clue in of itself. So.
Again, I don't know what you've actually looked up, so.
Yeah, don't worry about it. But yes, I do now have a Heracross in my possession. The problem is that I don't have the time nor the means to unlock Heracross's full potential. So I am actually going to stick with Brava here for my final pick.
Oh, wait, actually, what level does Vibrava evolve into Flygon?
45, funny enough. So he's on 43 at the minute. And the way the Shadow Pokemon thing works is that the XP is locked down until you do
Yes,
the
you're.
purification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are things like that, and that was a badly thought out mechanic.
Um. Yes, I think like it's. I think it would. This was one of those ones that kind of benefits. You know, in the later games where like the more Pokemon you catch, it easier it is to catch Pokemon just generally.
Yes.
Um. Now that this is my boomer opinion is that maybe you shouldn't have something like that in a Pokemon game, but it's a quality of life kind of thing. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But something like this, for instance, where like if you incentivize snagging Pokemon by saying, okay, the more Pokemon you snag, the easier it is to purify them, then I would say at this point it'd be really handy to be able to just pop down to the Colosseum, clean, help out Heracross, and then kind of move on with your lives in that respect. Like the fact that like now we are now, as I said, in the final kind of throes of the game, and
Mhm.
you've given me a really, really good option. But I'm not gonna stop dead and fucking purify Heracross just to have it on my
Well,
team. It's too late for
like,
that sort of stuff.
what would have to be given to you for you to decide to go back and redo a whole thing again?
Oh, Jesus, it'd have to be a pseudo legendary. You're looking at a Salamence, a Tyranitar, Metagross. Like,
Yeah.
I at this point, like, it has to be something that is objectively like too good to say no to. And unfortunately, like, Heracross is good, but like, I'm just looking at like how much like Vibrava has moved so close now. It's like
Yeah.
I might as well just press on with Vibrava and just get it done, you know?
Hmm. But no, I think that you should have been able to level up your shadow Pokemon. Like keeping
Mm,
keeping them at like, oh sorry, you caught that at level 40, so until you decide to be friendly enough with it, you'll
yeah.
have this really useful shadow mechanic, but he's locked at that level.
I think the locked move set is the one that really grinds my gears at this point because
Yeah.
I think the way they had intended making this game was that like you'd go away and you'd kind of slowly nurse the Pokemon back to health, which is in of
Yes.
itself a nice kind of altruistic approach. It's nice. I don't think it doesn't really work well for me in a vacuum, me in this moment in time because I'm actively trying to like clear the game in the quickest fashion.
Yep.
So in a
Okay.
way, I'm not the right person to bow criticism here because I'm actively rushing through this, and not maybe not playing the game in the spirit it's meant to be.
Mhm.
Um,
Not playing it as Nintendo intended.
it intended exactly. Um, I
Look,
can't
I
imagine
do.
like doing this for like for four Pokemon was difficult, let alone the full 60, 70 odd that they expect you to do it for, you know?
How big do you think the Shadow Dex is?
I think it's only 50 or 60, isn't it? Like it's not a massive amount. And like I'm also to count like you would get like freebies with the Azure flutes and stuff like that. So
I think you're overestimating how many there were available.
yeah, maybe you're right.
Okay.
I had in my head it was about 50 odd. So
No, I think it's close to about 30 odd.
oh really? Okay. Even then, that's still a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
I'm
One
sorry, but
second, just to confirm for myself.
yeah.
Uh, actually, yeah, you're probably closer to being right with about 60 odd, but some of them you wouldn't get multiple ones in the one playthrough,
Yeah,
or
you'd be
some of
catching
the
30 things, but like someone would evolve and some shit like that. So
yeah, yeah. But I do think, looking back at this, like by this stage, if you were to put yourself in the shoes of what age would we have been whenever this came out?
oh, I'd
Um,
say well it's about 10, 15 years ago now, isn't it? So yeah, whatever that is in adult
how,
years.
how, how, how old do you think we are?
Well, I feel older than I am, James. So I'm trying to balance that out, you know? So,
Okay, just for reference, this came out 22 years ago.
yes. So, so yes, older than I think is the answer to your question, to your query.
This came out in '03, so I would have been about 12.
Yeah, I would have been about that myself, yeah.
Right. Um, so by that stage, you had Gen 1, you'd had Gen 2, you had the initial exit, and
Hmm.
then you had Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald come out, and you had Fire Red and Leaf Green, and at this stage there were still a small handful that couldn't be available, or
Yes.
those that were available were fucking dicks. Like
Yeah.